All right, how is everybody?
Going good.
Good. Welcome to school today. What's happening in your lives?
Last week Friday, I need back surgery.
Back surgery?
Yeah, my lower back.
Oh my God, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that, Nick.
Been in pain about 10 years now, so kind of used to it.
Oh, Jesus. What's going on at Bonaventure? Are they still trying to get you to Thanksgiving?
Yep.
You gonna make it?
I don't know.
No, you're not sure? You guys aren't sure what's going on? Is there more COVID cases, or is it getting worse, or what?
There's like 4 cases and like 17 different groups in quarantine.
If you got, say you go to class and somebody gets it in your class, you got a quarantine?
If they sit next to you.
If they sit next to you? So if you get quarantined, what does that mean? You got to be all by yourself for 2 weeks?
If you live like in a townhouse and like your roommates have been exposed and you guys get to all quarantine together. If not, you got to go to Doyle and be by yourself for 2 weeks.
And they bring you food.
Hickey food.
So it's just like prison.
Pretty
Yeah, you
much.
get to go out to the courtyard for one day or one day.
Say it again, Caitlin.
You get to go to the courtyard once a day of Doyle for outside time.
That's just like prison. Man, anybody not coming back in the spring because it sucks?
Brendan O'Kane's not.
What?
Brendan O'Kane isn't.
He's the one who got in trouble, right?
Yeah, he said the parties weren't good enough for him this year.
Want to hear a story?
I'd love a story.
So when I was at college at Fairfield University, the Jesuits used to live, there used to be a Jesuit on every floor in every dorm. Yeah. So I lived in this dorm, and I was having a keg party in my dorm room.
Yes, sir.
So I came back with the kegs, 2 kegs. And there were so many people in my dorm room, I couldn't get in. I mean, I couldn't get into the room, you know? So we set the kegs up outside the door, which just so happened to be right in front of the Jesuits' residence. And he came home. He came home and he couldn't get into his residence. It didn't go well after that. After that, I decided to get my shit together and become a professor. Look at me now.
You're the man.
All right. We were studying something, right? Anybody remember what it was? So you guys aren't going to do the same thing as my econometrics class, are you? My econometrics class started playing this little game, you know, where I ask a question and they all stay silent.
Something to do with banking.
All right, there we go. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's find it somewhere.
We left off on slide 25.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, chapter 9. Banks, bank balance sheets, assets and liabilities. Assets and liabilities. Basic banking. Basic banking. General principles of bank management. So we have all these things, these 4 things, I think I said, and then these 2 things are how they do it. Yeah. So the 4 things are very important, and the last 2 are what they do to make the 4 happen. Liquidity, asset management, liability management, capital adequacy management, capital adequacy management. We talked about this very briefly, I think. We've got 2 banks here. I'm going to talk about this again, just really kind of quickly. We've got 2 banks here, high capital and low capital. The high capital has $10 million in capital. The low capital bank has only $4 million in capital. Yeah, capital is the owner's equity. So they take a hit. They have $90 million in loans, $90 million in loans, and a $5 million loan defaults. So they both lose $5 million. This dude is styling. He's still got $4 million in bank capital. He can still operate. This dude is sucking wind. He's lost $1 million in equity. The government, the regulatory agencies are going to make him shut down. So we have return on assets, return on equity, and the equity multiplier. We talked about this. So we have return on assets is profit over equity. We have a return on assets. What did I say before? Return on equity is profit over equity. Return on assets is profit over assets. And we have the equity multiplier, your ratio of assets to your capital, right? So for the dude that has $10 million in capital here, they have an equity multiplier. Come, I can't make this work. Of 10. 100 million over 10, right? The other dude has, the low capital bank has only 4 million. They have 100 million in assets. So assets over equity is 100 over 4 or 25. So we have a return on equity of 10% for the high capital bank and 25% for the low capital bank. So naturally, we all want to be in an investment that returns 25% return on equity. But that dude took a hit and now he's out of business. So there's a trade-off between return on equity and staying in business. This trade-off between safety and return to equity. So it benefits the owners of the bank by making their investment safe. But it's costly to the owners of the bank because the higher capital they have, the lower is the return on equity. The choice depends on how smart you are, the state of the economy, and levels of confidence. So as a manager, when you graduate, you've got to make the decisions on how much bank capital to hold in the bank. If we don't have enough bank capital, that leads to slower credit growth. All right. This is what happened in 2008. Bank capital, shortfalls of bank capital led to slower credit growth. Huge losses for banks from their holdings of securities backed by residential mortgages. The losses reduced bank capital. Banks couldn't raise any capital in a weak economy, had to tighten their lending standards. Tighten their lending standards. I'll digress for a moment, just to keep you hopefully engaged. When I returned from Europe in 2000, after working abroad for 11 years, my wife and I bought a house here in Connecticut, and I paid for it with my credit card. It was easy. It was easy. Money was free. I say money was free because the interest rates were quite low. And, they were giving money to everybody, right? This was 2000. So I bought this house with my credit card. When I took the job at Bonaventure in 2015, I bought a house in Allegheny, and man, I had to jump through all kinds of hoops to get the money from the bank because of the tightening credit standards. You had to practically pledge your firstborn to get a mortgage. Yeah. Whereas when I bought the house in 2000 in Connecticut, I didn't have to do anything, man. Here's my credit card, So that's what we're talking about when we say a credit crunch. Okay. That was a digression, purely for your entertainment. Managing credit risk, screening and monitoring, specialization in lending and monitoring and enforcement of restrictive covenants. So they want to make sure that banks want to make sure they're not giving credit to people who are risky, no bad credit risks. They look into all aspects of your life, your credit, your salary, what other assets you have, what other loans, what other debts you have, how long you've been working, and do you dress conservatively or do you look neat? Yeah. So don't go into a bank wanting to borrow 100 grand looking like a bum. They're probably not going to give you the money. Sad to say, but I think it's true. Damn, it's hard to be a teacher. Okay, specialization in lending. This means know your customer. Sometimes banks will mostly operate in one sector. By being very well versed in such an industry, they can better determine what the risk is. I've shared about this before. If you're some hotshot kid and you want to open up a day trading business and you and your roommate want some money to finance your day trading business, everybody send me a chat. Hi, how are you? So I can take attendance. Okay. So if you're going to open a day trading business, you're not going to go to Community Bank, are you, in Allegheny, right? They're gonna say, what? You want how much? And you're gonna do what? So you're gonna go to a Wall Street bank that does a lot of that sort of thing. That's the know your customer, right? The expertise in lending, right? If you want to buy a house in Allegheny, New York, you're not going to go to Wall Street where they're busy making loans to day traders. You're going to go to community bank where that's all they do, right? And they're going to give you a free toaster maybe. Monitoring and enforcement of restrictive covenants. Banks spend a lot of money on auditing and information gathering. They write covenants into the terms of their loans, such as you must have homeowners insurance, you know? Okay, managing credit risk, long-term customer relationships, loan commitments, collateral and compensating balances, credit rationing. So long-term customer relationships, the bank can take a look at your track record. Do you pay your bills on time? Who do you write checks to? When do you spend a lot of money? If you have a long-term relationship with your bank, they will know, how often are you late paying your credit card? Yeah. They will know if you're paying your utility bills late, or you're paying surcharges on your utility bills. Yeah, they will know what you do when the market tanks, right? So loan commitments, have a credit line in place. This way you'll have money when you need it. For example, if you've got a business in Olean, you're going to have a credit line set up, right? Just like we do. My wife and I have a bunch of properties, and we have a credit line. If something happens, we can just write a check, So it's like a loan, but we're not paying anything because we're not using it. But we have very good credit. So then the bank also has a continual stream of information on you, right? I have my bank account is with Citibank. I've had the same bank account since 1985. Yeah, so they know me. Like if I call them up and say, something's wrong, they're going to pay attention. Collateral and compensating balances. You put something up when you want credit, put something up that's valuable. Yeah, some sort of compensating balance, particularly for a checking account. The checking account will reveal a lot about the company. And credit rationing. So this is one of the ways that banks will say, okay, we're happy to give you a loan, but only, say for example, your credit card, right? You want a credit card with $10,000 worth of credit. The bank is happy to say, we're going to give you $1,000 worth of credit and see how you do. Yeah. Or we're going to give you the $5,000 worth of credit, but we're going to charge you a higher rate and see what happens, right? So they have ways of managing their credit risk. Managing interest rate risk. All right. So we have here the balance sheet for First National Bank. They have $20 million in rate-sensitive assets, and they have $50 million in rate-sensitive liabilities, right? Now they have fixed rate assets. So these are assets that are fixed. Yeah, these are mortgages that are fixed, right? And then they have fixed rate liabilities. These are deposit, maybe CDs that they locked in a rate that they're going to pay, right? So the assets are loans that they've made. And if they're rate sensitive, this would be like a variable rate mortgage, yeah? And the liabilities, these may be variable rate savings accounts that they have to pay on. So what I want to do is I made some notes for you. See if I can find them. Chapter 9, my notes. Interest rate risk. So we just said we had 20 million in rate sensitive assets and oh, hang on. Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong button. Sorry. God, what a dingle. Okay. This is my notes, right? Is that what you see? Are you playing that game
Yeah.
like?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so we have 20 million in rate sensitive and 50 million in rate sensitive, 20 million in assets and 50 million in liabilities. Suppose interest rates go up by 5%. We would have assets of 5% times the 20 million in rate sensitive, right? And liabilities of the 5% times the 50 million in rate sensitive. So your assets here would go up by 1 million, but your liabilities would go up by 2.5 million. So your profits will decline by 1.5 million. This is the 2.5 in liabilities minus the 1 in assets, or 1.5. So here's the clincher. If a bank has more rate sensitive liabilities than assets, a rise in interest rates will reduce the profits, and a decline in interest rates will raise the profits. Okay, so remember that. If I could highlight on this sheet, I would. So let's go back to here. So that's our company, right? So let's have a look here. This is basic GAAP analysis, right? Rate sensitive assets minus rate sensitive liabilities times the change in interest rates equals a change in bank profit. GAAP analysis. So there's a couple of different ways of doing this. Maturity bucket approach. This gives the effect of an interest rate changes over multi-years. And then standardized GAAP analysis accounts for different degrees of rate sensitivity. Let's look at my notes again. GAAP analysis, right? We're using GAAP analysis, and then we're going to talk about duration analysis. So GAAP and duration. Rate sensitive liabilities is subtracted from rate sensitive assets. In other words, that's the GAAP. In our example, we have 20 million in assets and 50 million in liabilities. Liabilities is subtracted from assets. So we have a negative 30 million in a GAAP. The negative 30 million times the change in interest rates means a loss of 1.5. Isn't that what we just said? I think up here. Profits will decline by 1.5 million. So we have minus 30 is the GAAP times 5% change in interest rates. All right. Now we're going to talk about duration. Stop, new share. Go here. Hang on. Waha. All right, GAAP and duration. So, duration. Percent change in market value of a security roughly equal to, this is messed up. This part here, it should be roughly equal to, like the curly Q equal signs, you know? Percentage point change in interest rate times the duration. So, and this uses a weighted average duration of a financial institution's assets and its liabilities. See how net worth responds to the change in interest rates. Let's have a look at my notes here for an example. Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong button again. God, you'd think I'd be better at this, but okay. So duration. This is based on Macaulay's duration, measure of average lifetime of security stream of payments. So the average duration of assets is 3 years. So remember, assets for the bank are things that like the loans that they've made. Yeah. So the average duration is that the period of time that they're going to get a stream of payments. The duration of liabilities. Liabilities are deposits that we make at the bank, right? They are a liability for the bank. They're going to have to pay us interest on them. So if they're locked into a time sensitive like a CD, right? You could buy a 5-year CD, a 2-year CD, whatever. So for this example, we say the average duration of the assets is 3 years. The duration of the liabilities is only 2 years. So for example, we have $100 million in assets on the left-hand side of the balance sheet. On the right-hand side, we have 90 million in liabilities and 10 million in capital. We have an increase of 5% in interest rates. The market value of the assets, oh, Jesus, is down 5% times the 3 years, or 15%, or $15 million, right, of $100 million. The market value of the liabilities down 5% times 2 years only is 10%. We had 90 million, that's a drop of 9 million, right? 10% of 90. So the net worth declines by $6 million. Yeah? That's duration. We look at the length of time of the stream of payments. Okay, everybody cool? You got to believe that if we have some little thing like this go on in money and banking, where we have numbers and we have examples and we have you know, a little bit of calculation to do, you got to believe that I'm going to go for that on an exam, right? I mean, you know, it just that's the first thing they teach us at teacher school. Okay. Let's wrap this up. Off-balance sheet activities. Loan sales and generation of fee income. So loan sales, secondary loan participation, this often means that they package up their loans and sell them, right? So it used to be, and it still is in a place like Olean or Allegheny, where they make a loan to a homeowner to buy a mortgage, you know, to buy a house in Allegheny. They keep that loan. They keep that loan as part of their portfolio. But more often than not, particularly in a bigger metropolitan area, the bank will make the loan and then package them all up and sell them, right? And then they sell them, and somebody like an investment bank, more Bank of America or UBS or somebody like that, will buy those loans and then create mortgage-backed securities. Yeah, and so they strip them and they say, okay, we got this many credit people with this credit score and this credit score and this credit score, put them into that, right? But largely at a little place like Allegheny, they're going to keep the loan, make the loan, keep the loan, and it's in their portfolio, right? So, but the idea of packaging up their loans and selling them, that's what we would call off-balance sheet activity for the bank. They do that to make money. You know, they're trying to make money. They're just like everybody else, yeah? Fee income. So they could also service these mortgage-backed securities, right? In other words, they'll charge a fee. They'll say, okay, hey, we packaged together all these loans and we're going to sell them to you, but then we're also going to service them, you know? So like they'll say, oh, Gallagher bought a house and he's in this tranche of mortgages, but we're going to make sure Gallagher pays every month, right? So, and we're going to charge you a fee for doing that, yeah? And then structured investment vehicles potentially expose the banks to risk, as has happened at 2008, right? They could also charge fees for things like Foreign exchange trading, yeah. Um, they could charge a fee for things like having a loan commitment. So for example, having a credit line, right? You have a credit line and maybe you're not necessarily using that credit line, but you want to have it available to you in case something happens or you see a nice yacht that you just have to have. You will pay a fee for having an open credit line available to you. Okay. All right. More off-balance sheet activities, trading activities, and risk management. So financial futures, options for debt instruments, interest rate swaps, foreign exchange trading, and speculating. Yeah, so banks are allowed to do this stuff now, right? But it does pose a principal agent problem. Yeah, who's doing what? What kind of internal controls are in place? You guys ever remember the story about Barings Bank and Nick Leeson, rogue trader?
No.
So the dude's name is Nick Leeson. I traded with him in London when I was there. He went to Singapore. I think it was Singapore. And Barings Bank was the oldest bank in England, maybe 200 and some odd years old. And Nick Leeson was trading for Barings, Barings, Barrings. And he just lost everything they had. They closed the bank after, I don't know, 250 years. Let me see if I find it. Hang on, this is fun. Holy smoke, he looks old. You know what that means, right? That means I look old.
You look
Oh, he's
young.
not what?
You look young.
He's not even my age. He's not even as old as me. Barings Bank. Investopedia. Hang on. Okay. It's fun to have a little digression anyway. This is the dude, Nick Leeson. He, former English derivatives trader, notorious for bankrupting Barings Bank, the United Kingdom's oldest merchant bank. So, April 1992. He made, let's see how much he lost. $208 million sterling by the end of 1994. Kind of a lot of money. Anyway, that was a digression. Let's go back to our work. Yeah, so trading activities, right? They get involved in this. Could be dangerous. Witness Nick Leeson. Supposedly, they're supposed to have internal controls to reduce this principal agent problem, right? Separate trading activities and bookkeeping, hence the front office, back office, yeah. Limits on exposure, they should have trading limits. Value at risk, or VAR, is the preeminent sort of risk management system that banks use. It's not terribly effective. And what it's supposed to do is show the maximum loss that a given bank may be exposed to, right? And stress testing is sort of let's create a doomsday scenario and see what happens, right? Okay. Here's a look at this is even in our slides. Barings, venerable British bank, more than a century old. Sad morality tale of principal agent problem through a rogue trader can take a financial institution that is a healthy balance sheet 1 month and turn it into an insolvent tragedy. Oh, here we go. Oh, okay. So we want to look at the problems from chapter 2. Yeah, let's have a look. Chapter 9. I'm sorry. Did I say chapter 2? Just have a look at number 3. I'll put you into groups for 5 minutes. Just number 3. Everybody back? Okay. Hey, while you were in room, I found the book. This is my Nick Leeson, Rogue Trader. So he wrote a book about his experience, right? Bringing down. So you could bring down the world's oldest bank and lose several million dollars, several $100 million, and spend a little time in prison and then write a book and become a millionaire, man. So I'm just saying, if you're looking for a career path, right? Okay, what's the answer to this number 3?
So if the bank suffers a deposit outflow of 50 million, that would decrease the reserves to 25 million, and then the deposits to 450 million.
That's exactly right. What would happen then?
Since the reserve ratio is like 10%, you have to get your reserves up to 45 million. So you have to cover that extra 20 million with something.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and then you can do that by like maybe calling in or selling the loans.
Well, you could do it. You could do it. Would calling in loans be your first choice?
You could borrow the money.
Ah, sheesh. So you could borrow from other banks, right? Or you could borrow from who?
The Fed.
Yeah. So what's it called when you borrow from another bank? What's it called when you borrow from the Fed?
Is that the discount window?
You borrow from the Fed at the discount window. When you go to another bank and borrow, what do you borrow at? The Fed funds rate. Right? It's weird because when you borrow from the Fed, you borrow through the discount window. But when you borrow from another bank, you borrow at the Fed funds rate. So you could borrow, you could sell securities, couldn't you? Yeah, you could liquidate some of your securities to boost your reserves. And probably your last choice would be to try to call in loans, right? Because calling in loans pisses off your customers. You don't want to do that if you can help it. Okay? All right. So how about if on Friday, we do the rest of the problems from chapter 9 and move on from there? Hey, has anybody not done the case study? Maybe you should hang back and talk to me about that. All right, everybody have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hang on, Michael.
No worries.